All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So, today's lesson, we're going to look at some famous people who were soldiers during World War One. And again, because this is world history, we're going to look at both the Allied powers, the British, French, and things like that, and we're also going to be looking at the Central powers, so like Germany and Bulgaria and stuff like that. We're going to be looking at those countries and see what famous people came from them. Okay. So, so here's your warm up picture. Now, what I want you to do is to analyze this picture and basically identify each country. So, which country is A, which one's B, C, D, E, F. Okay. Now, on your paper, there's a list. It tells you this is, you know, there Germany's in here, France is in here, Britain's in here, Serbia's in here. So what you're going to do is basically say like, okay, I think A is this country or C is this country. Okay. Excuse me. Well, here's the thing, guys. I want you to use your prior knowledge. So what you learned last week, use that to help you. Okay. Now, if you did not watch the video, you didn't even listen to it, you just wrote down the stuff, you may want to go back and see that video, lecture video from last week, and go over that again. Okay, because again, um, I don't know if you're actually listening or you're just, you know, um, just writing down the notes, pausing and writing down the notes. I don't know how you're doing this, how you're learning. Hopefully, you are listening. Hopefully, you are learning from this. But the thing is, you're going to identify all these countries. Okay. So I would say go with the ones you know for a fact. Like, oh, I know for a fact, you know, Britain is this one, France is this one. You know, use the ones that you know for a fact, and then try to use your educated guess. Try to remember how the story went. You know, when this country did this, and then these guys declared war on them, and this country declared war on them because of that. Excuse me. So do that. Be easy on yourself, okay? So think about it. Pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in three, two, one. Now, I cannot teach World War One without talking about this guy because oh my god, this dude was something else. Um, this guy you see in that picture right there is one of the most controversial people in Russian history. His whole name, and I might kill it, is Grigory Yefimovich Rasputin. Now, you may have heard that last name, Rasputin. Okay, that's how most people knew him by. Now, Rasputin was a Siberian peasant. Okay, and he claimed that he was a prophet and that he had healing abilities. Okay, now thing is, Rasputin got married at a young age, and that didn't work out. So he ended up going to Greece, and then he moved to the Middle East, and then he moved to Jerusalem, and then in 1903 he returned back to Russia. Now, here's the thing. Tsar Nicholas II only had one son, and his son had hemophilia. And I'm sure you're thinking, Mr. Martinez, what's hemophilia? It's basically like when you get a cut. If you ever seen like a scab and things like that forming on that cut, that's because there was blood clots, and blood clots help your body heal up that wound. It like basically forms a barrier so that the bleeding will stop and your skin can heal and things like that. Okay, so it's a protective thing. But the thing is, with hemophilia, the blood clots can't form. So you constantly bleed and bleed and bleed and bleed. And even the simplest cut, a person could basically like bleed out, you know. So Rasputin was called in to heal the boy. And the thing is, Rasputin spent some time with them, and somehow, some way, the boy got better. Somehow, some way, um, he was no longer hemophilia, and this really like made like the czar's wife just go, oh, he is a healer. Oh my god! Now here's the thing though, Russian people didn't like him. There were a lot of Russian people who knew Rasputin and were like, this dude's a con man, this dude's no good. But the royal family, they actually liked them, especially the wife really liked Rasputin because of what he did. Okay. Now, World War One happens. Boom. Tsar Nicholas II basically says, you know what? I'm going to take care of everything going on with this war. Anything dealing with the war, I will take care of. He basically told his wife, anything going on inside Russia, you're in charge of. So if people need money to fix a road, that's your department. You take care of that. You know, if people need a shelter and they need food, you take care of that. Okay. So his wife's like, okay, I'll do that. So she was like, I need some advisors. I need people to help me. So she asked Rasputin to be her advisor. And Rasputin took advantage of the situation of being the uh, the wife's advisor, the government advisor, and he did some shady stuff. He was a womanizer and things like that, and it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, especially the Russian nobles and officials. So on December 30th, they basically had enough of him in 1916. So what they did was they beat the crap out of him, right? And then they shot him, thinking, okay, he's dead. Then Rasputin comes out. Oh man, I got shot. And they're like, this dude's still alive. So they shot him again, thinking he's okay. Now he's dead. No, Rasputin just kept getting up. So what they did is they not only kicked the crap out of him again, they tied him up, tossed him into a freezing river, and thinking, okay, now he's probably dead. So he was stabbed, shot twice, beaten both times, and then tied up and tossed into a river. Now, the thing is, he died from drowning. When they found his body, he had died from drowning. But what's trippy is he almost got out of his knots. Basically, a couple more tugs, a couple more pulls, and this and that, and he would have been out of his knots. So, yeah, he was a tough dude to kill. All right, so let's talk about Britain. What famous people fought under World War One? Number one, Winston Churchill. Okay, some of these guys play a significant role later on in the future. Now, he was the head of the British Navy, but what happened was at the Battle of Dardanelles, he made a big mistake and basically underestimated the Ottoman Empire, and they were defeated very badly, very badly. And he was demoted, and he would later become a battalion commander. But the thing is, this would hurt him later on in the future, especially during another major conflict. And people question, is he a good leader? Because look what happened in World War One, and they use that example. Okay. The next one is that guy up on top right there, Claude Rains. Now, some of you guys, more majority of you guys, I bet you even all you guys probably have no idea who that dude is. But what happened was this guy at the Battle of Vimy, he got hit by mustard gas. And the thing is, he lost 90% of his sight in his right eye. And like I told you, what happens when you experience mustard gas, it really screwed up his vocal cords. So he had a very rusty voice like this. And thing is, he said, you know what? I wanted to be a Hollywood actor. So once the war ended, he went to Hollywood and became a great actor. And it was that voice, believe it or not, that gave him the kind of distinguished sound from his voice. And people were kind of like, ooh, I like that voice. So he starred in famous movies like Casablanca, The Invisible Man. If you've ever seen the horror genre movies, the Wolfman and Frankenstein and stuff like that. The Invisible Man, that's him. So if you watch the movie, you hear that voice. He sounds like this. It's because of that mustard gas. And he was in Hitchcock's the famous movie Notorious. So if you have a chance, you should really check out those movies. And Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. That's another very famous one with Claude Rains. Great actor. Okay. Now, another very famous guy that come out of this time. His full name was Thomas Edward Lawrence, but he was known more as T.E. Lawrence. Most famously, he was known around the world as Lawrence of Arabia. Okay. Excuse me. Now, he went in as a colonel for the British Army, but he didn't start out that way. He was actually an archaeologist in the Middle East. He was trying to look up old civilizations and dig them up and excavate where their settlements were and things like that. So he was a history person in the Middle East. And then the war broke out and he basically became a colonel. Now, what is he famous for? Well, because of his knowledge of the Middle East history and he was able to communicate with the Arabs and stuff like that, he helped them plan a revolt against the Ottoman Empire. The Sinai and the Palestine campaigns, excuse me, against the Ottoman Empire were magnificent. And he did things that other people thought you can't do. You cannot take like Damascus, which is a specific town. You can't take that city, and he was able to do it. Um, and he played a significant role. He survived World War One, but he died a little bit afterwards from a motorcycle accident. Okay. The next guy, Keith Lucas. Now, this guy, not many people would know about him unless you're in the medical field. Because what he was a very promising neuroscientist. This guy was basically on the like truly starting the science of the nervous system. How does it work? How come when you touch a certain part of the spine and the nervous system, it affects this hand or this foot, this muscle, this whatever. He was basically really looking at it, dissecting the uh, the nervous system. How does it work? Why does when you touch fire and some of that you too much? What is the triggers and things like that? He was really interested in that and the brain. How do they work? How do they connect? How these things respond so fast? But the thing is, sad thing is, just like a lot of people at this time, he went into the war and he died. His plane collided with another one. And that's the thing, as you're going to see in the next one as well. A lot of smart and people who were just so ahead of their time died at a young age because of World War One. So another one is Henry Moseley. Okay, he was a physicist and he was looking at protons and looking at new chemical elements. How do they work together? What's the chemical reaction when you add this to this? And he was ahead of his game. He was ahead of his time. But the thing is, at the Battle of Gallipoli in Turkey, he was killed. And he was only 27 years old. And again, guys, this is something you're going to see quite a bit in war. People who are, I mean, they were on the verge of things. They were great minds. They join the war and they die. All right, so let's look at Germany and Hungary. So the guy up on top you see there, you might like, wait, that guy looks familiar. That looks like Dracula. That is the original Dracula. His name was Bela Lugosi. He served in the 43rd Royal Hungarian Infantry. Now the thing is, Bela Lugosi was actually wounded twice at two different battles, and he served his country. War ended. He went to Hollywood. And the thing is, he got the role of Dracula mainly because of his voice and his Hungarian accent. It, that whole The vampire talks like this. That's the way he really talked in English because he could not speak English that well. And he had that thick Hungarian accent. So that's where the whole talk, like Dracula talks like this, ha ha ha, because that's the way he really spoke. you know. So yeah, that's the original Dracula. Another guy we talked about last week was Manfred von Richthofen, otherwise known as the Red Baron. Now, here's the thing I didn't mention in those notes. Um, Supposedly, well, we do know this. He was shot down. He was shot down. His plane crashed. He died during World War One. Now, supposedly, he was shot down by this guy named Cedric Popkin when he was using the Lewis gun. Now, if you remember from last week, the Lewis gun was a rapid machine gun. It was a heavy machine gun, but it was lighter than most of the guns. So this was a gun that you could actually like pick up and aim, as opposed to the Hotchkiss and things like that. Those guns were heavy, so you'd have pick it up. It would have taken a lot of strength, and then to shoot, it would have you would have been like spraying and praying basically. Whereas the Lewis gun, you had more control because it was lighter. Okay. Another very famous person that joined World War One was Adolf Hitler. Now, Adolf Hitler served in the infantry and then became a private of the 16th Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment. This group was known as the Enlistment Regiment. Why were they called that? Because these were actually Austrian citizens who volunteered. They didn't have to be drafted, they volunteered to fight. Okay. Now, spoiler alert, he plays a major role in World War II. Okay. Now, this next guy, which you see in that picture at the bottom, closest to the notes, that is Peter von Littau Vorbeck. Vorbeck. He's better known as the Lion of Africa. Now, this guy, wow. Okay. Again, you have to give credit where credit is due, and this dude deserves a bunch of credit. He was a general in the Imperial German Army, okay? And he basically controlled the campaigns in Africa, okay? Now, for 4 years, he only had 14,000 men, okay? Just 14,000. And he went up against the British, Indian, Belgian, and Portuguese armies, which all of them combined equaled about 300,000 men. And he was able to defeat them. Now, did he win every single battle? No, but he won the major ones. He won the big ones. So yeah, with only 14,000 men, he was able to fight off these armies, which equaled up to 300,000 men. That's pretty impressive. All right, now this time of the war, America was in it now, and some famous people were in this. Some were made famous because of the war, and some were famous after the war. Um, One of the more famous guys because of the war was Alvin York. Sergeant York was a army soldier who famously didn't want to kill people. He was like he's against killing and things like that because of his religious belief. But the thing is, he was a sharpshooter. This dude, like, was amazing with a gun. And in one particular battle, he actually captured by himself 132 enemy soldiers. Yeah, I you don't believe me? Look it up. This one guy captured 132 men and marched them towards the Allied side and was like, "Okay, guys, I captured all these guys for you." Yeah. Another very famous person who joined the war was Ernest Hemingway. Now, at this point, Hemingway was already a famous journalist and an author. People already knew his poetry and his books and things like that. Now, thing is, he wanted to join, but he couldn't. They basically told him, dude, you have an eye defection, you know? So he was like, well, I want to join. They told him, We can't accept you. So what happened was he joined the Red Cross and drove their ambulances instead. So he felt, "Hey, if I can't be part of the army, at least I can do is help out," and that's what he did. So when they would bring soldiers from the front lines of trenches out, he would drive those ambulances to take them to the hospital. Okay, excuse me. The next famous guy was this man right here, the King of Cool, Humphrey Bogart. Now, Bogart joined the Navy and he basically transported soldiers from ship to land and land to ship. Okay. And after the war, he became a very, very, very famous American actor. You know, one of his famous movies was The Maltese Falcon. If you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. It's black and white though, so a lot of people think black and white movies suck, that they're not entertaining. No, it really is a good movie. If you like a mystery, you'd like that movie. And one of my personal favorites, Casablanca, which Claude Rains was in, if you remember earlier in the notes. Okay. Now, F. Scott Fitzgerald, he was a very famous author afterward because of one particular book called The Great Gatsby. Another famous American, Edwin Hubble. Now, some of you guys may recognize that last name, some of you guys don't. Hubble was an astronomer. And the thing is, he is credited for basically discovering that our universe is expanding. A lot of people thought, oh, our universe is just the way it is right there, what we see. And he basically realized, no, it's growing. It's still moving. It's still growing in every which way. And that's where we get the Hubble telescope. That satellites in the sky taking pictures from far, far away, you know, galaxies and stuff like that. They named that telescope after him because he was the one who said it's expanding. So they named it after him. Another very famous person, especially during the 1920s, was this guy named Horace Pippin. He was an African American artist who painted very great, amazing stuff during the Harlem Renaissance. All right, some other famous Europeans, Mata Hari, which is that lady up on top. Um, Now, the thing is, that was her stage name. She was a Dutch woman who moved to Paris to become an exotic dancer. Okay. But here's the thing, she became the kind of lover for a diplomat. And the thing is, during the war, she was paid to be a spy, by the Germans to spy on the French. Okay. But she was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Okay. And then thing is, sorry about that. Later on, she fell in love with a Russian captain and basically agreed, okay, you know what? I won't spy on the French, but I will spy on the Germans for the French. So she became kind of like a double agent in a sense. Um, because again, the Germans thought she was working for them, but she was actually working for the French. Now, the thing is, after the war ended, um, or going to end, France basically said, you know what? Um, she betrayed us. She betrayed us. And they executed her by firing squad in 1917. Okay. Now, some people think like, oh my God, that's so horrible. How could you do that? If you read the book, The Art of War, in there, Sun Tzu says, if you have a double agent, you need to kill them because they could spy on you to the other side. And because she did take money from the Germans, the French saw her as a double agent, so they executed her. The next person was Maurice Chevalier. I'm like not even trying to pronounce it. You can see it right there. It's in the green. He would become a very, very famous Hollywood actor. And this is where a lot of people get that French American accent from. That je ne sais quoi, oui, oui, monsieur, things like that. That fake French accent. That's where we get it from. Because he did speak with a French accent, but it was so distinctive that people thought that's how you speak French. Things like that. It's like, no, that's not how they speak like in France, you know. But during the war, um, a bomb, or grenade, however you want to say it, basically exploded right in front of him. And again, people don't die from the explosion; they usually die from the shrapnel, the piece of the metal that surrounds the casing of the grenade or bomb. And when it explodes, it shoots that stuff out everywhere. He took a bunch of it in the chest, and he was taken as a POW, prisoner of war. And again, as you can tell, he survived. He survived the war and became a famous actor. All right, so here's my question to you. Now, a lot of countries around the world back then and even now basically say that every male has to join the army or navy or some part of the military force. So that's my question to you. Do you think in our country right now, every male citizen should serve at least 2 years in the armed forces, whether it's Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, whatever? Okay. Do you think every male should serve at least 2 years? Why or why not? Okay. So explain. Okay. Now, once you're done with this, you guys should be working on your vocab. You guys should have all 6 words by now. And if you don't, um, then get whatever's on there on the board, get those done. Okay. You also have your research paper. So be sure you get that done as well. Okay. So, with that being said, guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.